www.ccpg.org.
Following program are pre-recorded.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach, along with Jason Spiess from the Crude Life. You can catch Crude Life Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270. And, of course, Jason, my co-host on Wednesday, and we're going to go a little different direction today because we're going to talk, at least start out talking a little bit of politics. I've got an interview with Charles Tuttle concerning election integrity coming up and his take in North Dakota politics and what the races are looking like. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. But, big breaking news yesterday, of course, or Monday, actually. Trump's bond was reduced in the state of New York because he was facing them grabbing a bunch of his property, which, depending on what side of the political aisle you're on, I still equate it until due process is done as a legal seizure, which... we know about that in North Dakota because there's some takings issues going on in North Dakota. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But Jason, thanks for joining me, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here, and happy Wednesday to you, good sir.
So let's start big picture, because what happens on the presidential election stage has a direct bearing on the oil and gas and coal and traditional energy sources platform, and actually very well could play into what's going on with the CO2 sequestration. A lot going on. So I want to back up a little bit. So we've got current President Biden on one side. We've got former President Donald Trump on the Republican side. We've got an independent candidate in Kennedy that is running. And I want to get your take on the Trump side to start with, because some big reports out about his donor list. Who's donating to the Trump campaign?
Well, that list is really interesting. You saw Harold Hamm's name was featured on there. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum's name was featured on there. Vivek Ramsworthy's name was featured on there. I'm not sure if he was on there from a donor perspective as much as a support perspective, but from, the pipeline supporters and pipeline proponents in North Dakota, Vivek does play a role. Doug Burgum does play a role. And when you look
that's the interesting part. Excuse me, but that's the interesting part, because Ramaswamy was the only candidate running for the Republican nomination. He was the only candidate that came out against CO2 sequestration and that Ponzi scheme that is Summit Carbon Solutions. So now you've got Harold Hamm and Doug Burgum, who are big proponents of the Ponzi scheme, which is Summit Carbon Solutions, and Vivek, who is against, or at least was against it when it came to his attention down in Iowa. And I don't know if it was just because he was trying to curry favor in Iowa or...
No, he got paid. He was paid. So, he got paid to go and, through campaigns and things like that. So, that's return on investment, so to speak.
Okay.
But when he did his speaking, I get where you're going, but at the end of the day, what you have is Trump signed the legislation to allow the tax credits to happen for
Q45,
the Summit Carbon Solutions project. Now, as far as do those tax credits define specifically what Summit Carbon Solutions is doing? Well, no. It just says that if you do these certain guidelines and these certain milestones, you get these tax credits. But Summit and some others are on the forefront, and they have legislative help, and they have lobbyists, and they have public-private partnerships, and they have nonprofits working on their behalf. So they're extremely well-funded and have vast resources. And so the Vivek thing is very important because he was a voice for the landowners to stand up against eminent domain, because that's ultimately what's going to decide, if this carbon pipeline is going to go through or not. Now, what I think is more disturbing than anything is, and I know we have to hit a break here soon, so maybe this is just going to be a tease into our next segment, Steve, but what I find more disturbing than anything along this is Doug Burgum and Harold Hamm's name were featured in there. And I think there was even a indication that Harold Hamm gave like $500 million or something like that to a nonprofit. Wasn't that, or was it 500,000? It was in the 500. Yeah. And so for me, single father who's, fought cancer and a small business owner, family business owner, that sort of thing. For me, when I see those types of numbers affiliated with donations to political campaigns, creating political action groups, starting nonprofits to compete in the private sector, I ask every single taxpayer out there, I ask every landowner out there, why are you giving your money to a billionaire who can go and afford to do things like that? Why are you giving your money to the governor's special interests so he can go and afford to do things like this? Because if you take away those tax dollars that they get through all these economic grants, they're not going to be doing this stuff. They can't afford to. The only reason they can do a lot of this special interest crap is because the government's funding it. Honestly, Steve, it's a form of money laundering, to be honest. If you were to look at the sterile different steps, like if you were to do an ESG transparency report, the FBI would come back and say, well, this is just money laundering. What's going on? Who's doing this?
Okay. So a lot to, we're going to get, you're right. We're up against a break. We're going to get into more of this when we come back. Jason Spiess, of course, The Crude Life. You can catch Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270. My co-host on Wattage Wednesday, I'm Steve Bach, and this is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk. Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bach, along with Jason Spiess and The Crude Life, and this is Talk of the Town. Of course, Jason Spiess and The Crude Life. You can catch Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270. This is a Wattage Wednesday. We're talking about campaign finance right now, which is going to lead into election integrity, which is a conversation we're going to have with Charles Tuttle coming up in just a little bit. But so, Jason,
Steve, I just want to give you one example of what I was talking about, and then I'll also like to get your opinion, because I'd like to get your opinion because, you've been the mayor of Bismarck. You are the Burleigh County Commissioner. You've been around and involved with politics. So, what I just said kind of progressively got a little bit more soapboxy and a little bit more, aggressive with my language, I guess, and direct, I guess direct would be a better word than aggressive. But so first of all, when you take a look at what Commerce gave money to that professor over at the University of Mary who started a nonprofit so they can go get a film done for $700,000.
Oh, no, part of it was we will start the nonprofit if we get the money.
So that's an example of what I'm talking about, the public-private money laundering, the public-private toxic nonprofits, because this is a toxic nonprofit. This nonprofit would not exist without government financing, to where they actually put that in the proposal. And what is it that the government's deciding they want to direct the marketplace? They're saying that we want to do $700,000 worth of movies in this state with this company that's now a nonprofit. So they can have tax write-offs. They can have more donations given through nonprofit status. They can do political things now because they're a nonprofit. There's a lot of advantages by having that nonprofit shield. There's a term. They're called toxic nonprofits. And they're really, like Emerging Prairies is the biggest one in Fargo, for example. Okay. So they really exist, and they popped up considerably over the last 10 years. That's a form, actually, of government money laundering, because you're essentially directing the money to a special interest. Well, your billionaires and your companies then can continue to advertise. They can continue to, invest in areas that they wouldn't otherwise without these big government stimulus checks, without these big government economic development things. So that's where that's coming from, is that there's a ton of examples right here in North Dakota where this happens. I mean, realistically, take a look at the nonprofits out there and ask yourself, what does that nonprofit do? Is that something that could be provided in the private sector? Or is that something that the nonprofit needs to do? Because if you take a look at over the last 5 years, 90% of the new nonprofits that have popped up, they're getting money through a supply chain through the government. And it's primarily a special interest involved. Going back to...
But there's a lot of ways that gets laundered through the system, though, too, because if you take a look at what the payments look like, because, okay, a lot of people think it's like, okay, somebody wrote a nonprofit a check. But you take a look what's going on with some of these podcasts and some of the different media platforms and how that money's being directed, whether it's through state tax dollars in one form or another, to it's almost like there's different buckets of nonprofits.
Yeah. Or silos,
there's a lot of different ways the money's getting filtered through.
And it's gotten worse. It's gotten very much worse. To where, like I said, there's a term now. They're called toxic nonprofits. I mean, this is not Jason Spiess making up the term. No, this is something that's been happening. And this isn't, this has gotten way worse than, United Way only spending 5% towards the cause, where 95% goes to executive salaries and NFL sponsorships. And Make-A-Wish has had the same problems for years, that only a certain amount of percentages goes to the cause. Well, this has gotten so bad that it's that business model, which everybody recognized. You know what? Maybe we should try to get that 5% up to 10%, because they're doing good. Make-A-Wish does good. United Way does good. What good does Emerging Prairies do? What good does Friends of Energy and Ag do? What good do these nonprofits do? To me, they're political weapons destroying the marketplace. And they're primarily funded either through tax credits or through government stimulus to private companies to then support those nonprofits. Like I said, look at all the money that Summit's already gotten. Look at all the money that Summit's going to get. And what? There's two nonprofits that I know about. Wasn't there one in Fargo? It had to do with energy prosperity, and there was another one now, and Friends of Energy and Ag. That's just two off the top of my head that have literally been started to help this unit.
The easiest way that I like to equate this, because I've had a couple of people ask me about this, and it's like, okay, do you gamble? Do you go to the casino? Well, the odds are stacked in the house's favor. The house, the longer you stay in the game, the house will always win. Now, the odds are stacked for the house. But when you're looking at this taxpayer generated pool of money that's going into Summit or some of these other nonprofits for the benefit of Summit, or whatever the case may be, whatever the topic du jour is at the time, you're set up with house money. You play fast and free with house money. So if you're legitimately going to play blackjack and you are, or video pull tabs, and you're sitting there playing, if you have $100 of your money versus $100 that somebody just said, here, go spend this, you're probably playing ones on your money, but you're max betting on the free money that somebody gave you. That's the other part of this.
Well, here's how it works, Steve. So basically, and I know we got to run up against a break, and we can continue talking about this or go whatever direction you want. But so basically, a corporation or a rich person or somebody has political interests, and they get money from, commerce, or they get money through this nonprofit economic development stimulus or whatever the case is. Because a lot of governments, they just outsource to nonprofits. Like if you want homeless help, they just direct you to nonprofits. They don't help you. Government doesn't help you. The government gives money to nonprofits. Government gives money to oil companies. Government gives company to general contractors. They really don't do anything. They have a lot of middle paper pushers. Okay, so they push the paper and push the money to a corporation or a rich person that has political interests. That money then gets donated to a super PAC or a political nonprofit or an Emerging Prairies or a Friends of Ag and Energy, however they want to go ahead and file their nonprofit status. The money then buys flyers and it buys social media time. It buys podcasts. It buys people's networking sponsorships. All that has issue-based interests, issue-based advertising, interest-based influencing. Okay, those
And that's how
ads
the money
then
comes
help.
back.
Those ads then, those social media posts, those ads, those sponsorships, those conferences, those whatever it might be, those marketing du jour that comes in many different forms. They help a candidate win. Those pictures with Mike Rowe that basically the government funded through economic development grants and chambers with Mike Rowe and Fargo that the press was not allowed to go to, but Burgum's candidates were able to post on social media pictures with Mike Rowe. That's an example for that. Okay, the political votes then support what the corporation or the political person has their interests. So it's about a 5 or 6 step cycle, and it's very archaic and old. And that's what is more concerning than anything, is that more and more people see the cycle. They want the cycle to end, and the people in charge are being really insulting to everyone's intelligence. So that's what's more concerning than anything, because everybody knows that for every dollar Harold Hamm donates to the state for whatever nonprofit, he gets $10 back. So not only does he get a tax write-off his money, but he gets it back through economic development and reduced water rates, and now carbon subsidies.
You get the double or triple or quadruple dip in some cases. And
that's what I'm saying. When you take a look at
you're washing the money and it all comes back in the ROI. And
you donate $5 million. You donate $5 million to the University of Mary, you get $10 million back on commerce and economic ERC stimulus. Yeah.
We are up against a break. When we come back, I want to finish this conversation and then preview a little bit what we're going to talk with Charles Tuttle about concerning the landscape of politics and the election. And we're going to focus in on the governor's race here in North Dakota, because it does have a big bearing in a lot of different directions. And I want to get into his, he's one of the main signature collectors for election integrity. And we're going to talk about what the Secretary of State's office is doing fighting that, which I kind of think is a little illegal. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Program schedule, updated local news, sports, contests, and more. Visit today at supertalk1270.com.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bach along with Jason Spiess of the Crude Life. You can catch Crude Life Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270. We're talking about the landscape, political landscape. Before we go into North Dakota specifically, because we kind of veered off into that, just from the donor list, my big takeaway, taking a look at Trump's donors, there was a lot of different political agendas in there. Now, it's funny because we're talking 30, 40, 50 million dollars, and that number pales by comparison to what Biden has been raising and those specific political agendas. At the end of the day, who loses? Well, it's the taxpayers. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, libertarian, independent. We're all losers in this because Trump's right about one thing. It's a swamp, and we have to break the machine, the political cycle, to a certain degree, because I don't think there's going to be any change. I mean, Jason, when you're looking at the dollars for political agendas, and we beat up on the Republican or the Trump side of things, going over to the Biden side of things, it's worse. I mean, it's legitimately worse. And we've got all this money, all this political agendas, and I've said this forever. If you can take politics out, take the money out, you can actually accomplish something. You actually can have good outcomes. And we're so far down this road. I honestly, Jason, I don't know where we're going. It's scary out there. It really is.
Which extreme do you want to vote for, Steve?
I don't want to vote for an extreme
on the right, or do you want to vote for the extreme on the left? It's no longer about lesser of two evils. It's about which is more of the extreme, because I know people that legitimately do like Donald Trump for what he's done for American values. Okay. Now, when I say that, people like Michael Moore have come forward and given examples how Donald Trump made foreign companies pay our taxes, called tariffs, rather than have American people pay taxes just to stimulate jobs, because Trump's trying to stop, making you pay for the rope that's going to hang you, for example. Okay. It appears that his policies and a lot of what he's doing is trying to do that. Now, there's a lot of examples where I know one person I talked to where he's absolutely despises Trump, but he votes for him because he doesn't want his insurance rates to go up because he's in charge of 100 employees.
Well, okay, so take a look at this. And people talk about, and the uninformed will talk about how the Republican Party is for big business and wealthy people. And Mike, you know who's made the most money off of the Biden administration and the policies the Biden administration has put in? Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. Doesn't get any bigger than that. So you can say whatever you want, but the landscape has changed, Jason. The landscape's changed a lot.
So let's go back to what I said. It's no longer about the lesser of two evils. It's about which one is more extreme. And that's a problem. That's a problem because dividers divide. And all we've had for the last 15 years is division. It's ramped up.
Okay, but you know why?
It hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse.
You know why? And I consider myself I consider myself a conservative, but I consider myself a practical conservative. There's things that I know that, my stand on something is I'm not going to get my way. Nor should I. That's the way our government's set up. I shoot for 80%. That's my goal. But think about what you just said. Why do dividers divide? Why do they go down this road? Because from profit or from chaos comes profit.
Right.
When things are chaotic, there's opportunity there for those that, whether it's the stock market, whether it's different business, energy, out of chaos, there's profit. Now, go back to the Obama administration and remember the energy policies of the Obama administration? You and I were working in a lot of space at this time. And the one thing that everybody was a little slow to figure out was there were no rules. So if you're a business or an industry, and we'll take oil and gas and energy as the example, there were no rules. So if you have a set of rules in front of you, you know how to, or will figure out, the private sector will figure out how to maneuver within that set of guidelines, within those rules to do business. What happens when you don't have the rules? How do you, everything you do could be bad, or everything you do could be denied or taken to court because you don't know what the rules are. How do you play a game when you don't know what the rules are? And that was the brilliance of the Obama energy policy, they didn't give anybody the rules. They just, oh, yep, they're coming. And they tied things up for so long. You take a look at the coal industry specifically and how they had to change a lot of things within the industry because the coal industry is very slow. It's like that big ship. It takes a while to turn that rudder. You got to have a ramp up. And for the coal industry, it's 4 or 5 years, knowing what's coming and how to work within or around different rules and regulations. And when you don't have the lead up time because you don't know what those rules are, you're put in a very bad position. And that's where we are today. A lot of those bad choices are good for the Obama administration that was against traditional energy sources. That is where a lot of this stems from, was we don't know the rules. So now you threw a lot of chaos in a lot of different directions all at once. Out of chaos comes profit. So those that figured out how to manage or maneuver, or with the Q45 credits, and I'll come back to those because that's what's out in the marketplace right now. People are aware of that, or hopefully aware of that, with Summit Carbon Solutions' proposed CO2 pipeline. Out of chaos comes profit. So there are those that are professional dividers that don't want things working smoothly, that like the big divide, that like the polar extremes, because that's chaos.
There are people that need propaganda because it's very important to political agendas, which is important to societies as well. And the reason they need propaganda is because the truth doesn't need motivation. There's an instinct built in every human being to search for the truth and not be afraid. And then there are those who understand that if they can put things in front of people to make them appear to be afraid, well, then they have you. And really, that's where you can get into some biblical discussions about that's, once your free will is gone, that's the devil taking over. And that's one of the reasons why Republicans used to be so adamant about a Christian-based or a Muslim-based or a Jewish-based upbringing, because then we know where you pull your values from. So when you don't have that, you have people out there trying to control fear, trying to control information. And if you can tear down the truth through those propaganda ways, and I'll give you a great example, Steve. Let's talk about this LGBTQ.
Tell you what.
BLT. Yeah.
Hold that thought. We're up against a break. We'll come back after the break and talk about that, because I want to spin it back into North Dakota a little bit, because that'll be a great lead up for a conversation with Charles Tuttle and election integrity that we're going to get to as well. I'm Steve Bakken, along with Jason.
Trust me. Stick around for this one, because you're going to hear nothing like you've ever heard before.
This is Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken, along with Jason Spiess from the Crude Life. You can catch the Crude Life Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. right here on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town. Weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union studio.
Your destinations and ideas. RM World Travel. Sunday morning, starting at 5 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app.
Portions of the following program are pre-recorded.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
So the question is, if you're going to break up Apple, depending on what this litigation looks like, with Apple being sued, then
what's the future look like? I'm envisioning a world where you can go in and out of different platforms. You can go from the Android to the iOS and back and forth without, in some scenario where it's seamless, and not getting hung up on the apps anymore. I mean, what are your thoughts on what that looks like? You buy an app right now and you own the app, but is that going to change?
Right. I look at this from the standpoint of maybe streaming services. The apps are free. You pay for the service. I think that's the direction a lot of these companies are going. A lot of them are in-app purchases. And that's what it really comes down to, the 30%. It's no longer, to me, what the platform is. It's who's having to pay what share of the fee. I subscribe to Netflix through my Apple device. And it just goes on my Apple card every month. And I control the subscriptions that way. Apple gets a 30% share of what Netflix charges me. For better or for worse, that's the way the system is. Yeah, I could actually subscribe to Netflix outside of that ecosystem as well and just pay Netflix directly. And Apple wouldn't get the 30%, but I'm probably paying the same amount. So to me, it doesn't really...
There's no benefit for you.
Yeah, there's no benefit. Now, there's a benefit with my Paramount Plus subscription. My Paramount Plus subscription is left over from before Paramount Plus even existed. It's an old CBS All Access. And the deal was, if you have Apple TV Plus, we'll give you CBS All Access for $9 a month. Now, you want Paramount Plus, you're going to pay more. And I am paying more than $9 now, but I'd be paying a lot more for my Paramount Plus subscription if I hadn't already had the bundle and been grandfathered in. Because I have the commercial-free version of Paramount Plus for the price of what you'd have of the free version now, basically. If I was going to be a brand new subscriber, what I'm paying now, I'd have to watch commercials if I subscribe today. But I can log into anything. I can log in on an Android device. I can log in on my phone, my iPad, my iMac, my Apple TV, my Roku. Yeah, I mean, Apple TV is even on my son's Roku TV. So you can log into your Apple TV account that way and access all of our iTunes movies and our Apple TV Plus subscription. So ultimately, it's really going to come down to, what do the developers have to pay? And I don't see the consumers benefiting from Fortnite not having to pay 30%. Does that mean they're going to give me a 30% discount on what they're charging me?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's this issue of credit card fees. Apple charges certain fees to be allowed to be added to Apple Wallet. Well, there's a convenience factor there. I've had to get my credit cards are in my Apple Wallet, and I've had to get my credit cards canceled and renewed recently, do some identity theft, but I didn't have to re-enter my credit card numbers. My new card number was issued to me, and my new card was automatically updated in my wallet.
Well, okay, that's kind of crazy.
Well, yeah, it's like, used to be you had to go and you canceled your card, got a new number, you got to go out and change everything. All your recurring subscriptions, you got to change them all. Well, with my American Express, it was seamless. New charges needed to be on my new number, but they automatically updated my old subscriptions to the new number. And if I had any issues, I had to go and cancel things separately, but maybe there is a security concern there that they just automatically...
Big Brother's kind of watching.
Yeah. But I think that's where it's headed, is that you pay for the service. What device you're using doesn't matter. Microsoft Office is a subscription product. I have it on my Mac at home, I have it on my iPad, and I have it on my computer here at work. One fee, multiple devices. And there's this issue of password sharing. Everyone's like sharing passwords. Netflix cracking down on that. To be honest, I just don't know where this lawsuit's going to go. What do you break up Apple as? Do you separate out their iPhone division from their watch division from their computer division? Or do you set the App Store aside and say you have to do the App Store separately? Or are they supposed to be able to take all comers and just let?
See, and that's kind of where I envision everything's unlocked. It's more of a broad platform. Your device is separate, but now we're losing the potential of integrating certain devices amongst certain devices. So like, if you want to think of it in terms of populating a platform with, I've got the watch, the phone, the computer, the tablet, and they're all integrated. Does everything function autonomously, or do all the walls come down? Because I could see pros and cons of the walls coming down. I mean, I don't see a benefit for the consumer in any fashion with that. So that's why I kind of wonder where the lawsuit's going to wind up going.
Yeah, I mean, so my phone is unlocked and suddenly I can install apps from anywhere. But am I going to? Where do I go to get them? Do I go to these stores that don't have any controls on what gets put out there? I look at it from
Do you trust the security?
Yeah, I look at it from the standpoint of some of the computers that come through this office for repair. There are bundled programs that come with all these computers now. Antivirus, and it's like, but you don't need that antivirus. There's all these upsells, so they're constantly bundling it with you, and there is the risk that you go and you start installing stuff from wherever you want, you're going to get a virus. So from the standpoint of not being able to install anything that breaks my computer, I think for some segment of the population, it would be nice to, if you're not a computer expert, to be able to, I just go here and I click and it's done. Now, is that a dumbing down of the populace? And we're taking advantage of people that just don't know how things work? But at the same time, you're less apt to have a problem. I've seen multiple computers come through here. People want to be able to install whatever they want, and then they go and they click on something they shouldn't. And not suddenly I have to restart their computer and reset everything. They've lost data.
Well, and that's the security component, because so for one, there's familiarity and people get comfortable with what they know. Hence the Apple, iOS, the Windows, they get comfortable in that platform. And then there's the security side of that, because if you do open it up and take those walls down through litigation, through this lawsuit, then are you exposing people to many more nefarious things that are out there that, well, there was this level of protection when I was working within this system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a case where, hey, this is free. Why don't I just download this version of Office as opposed to pay Microsoft? It's like, but it's covered in ads, or it's just terrible.
Or you're going to wind up with a bunch of add-ons that weren't advertised as coming with the system.
Super Talk.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
And today on the Tech Ranch, by the way, welcome everybody. Welcome. Yeah.
Hey.
Good, right?
Yeah. Marlo Anderson, Steve Bakken, John Nails.
Chaos. Didn't they say that on the thing coming in?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we have the bumper,
reiterating. Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm just asking.
Cybersecurity expert.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
Geek.
And then you.
Whatever the hell I am.
You're at the control panel. You're the king of the controls.
Okay,
king of the controls.
I like that.
King of the controls.
I'm going to go with that.
So yeah, I was targeted last week in Vegas, I think, and we're going to have our cybersecurity specialist. I'm going to tell this story.
Okay, tell the story. And
well, I have other things I want to talk about.
We'll let
first.
John decide.
That's right.
If you were targeted.
That's right. Right. We're also going to be talking a little bit about Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi, and why maybe that's not such a good idea. I think John can weigh in on that too. And swiper jacking, cord jacking, all this other stuff that maybe people need to be situationally aware about when they're out in public. What is it that you really need to be careful about when you're using your cards, your personal identity? These are all things we're going to talk about today.
Not tracker jackers, though.
What's the tracker jacker?
That was that killer bug from like a hornet from the Hunger Games.
I need to watch the Hunger Games, I guess. Yeah.
Overrated.
So anyway, our special guest today.
I bring everything back to movies, John. Sorry. Don't you? It's just me.
It's been a long time since we've talked, John. So John Nagel, cyber security. I always want to say cyber, but it's cyber security specialist.
Cyber security.
Cyber security.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
So it's been a long time since we've talked. You were a guest often on the Old Tech Rant.
I even had the privilege of guest hosting and being Marlo Anderson 2.0. It was sad. I got way too much hair.
He died for that, right? No wonder it's 2.0.
Marlo Anderson.
He's faster. He's stronger. He has more hair.
But no cake.
So here's the setup. So I was in Vegas last week, and I was attending a convention. And I got this invite to go to this pre-CES Consumer Electronics Show thing, which I've covered, as you know, for many, many years. And they were going to be talking about NFTs and crypto and all this stuff that's kind of in my wheelhouse. So I got a little excited about it. The convention that I was at the convention center in Vegas. This reception was at the hotel right next door, so I could walk out the doors where I was going over to this other one, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this couldn't be more easy. They had actually they were going to put me up for 3 nights in the hotel and the whole bit, and we were going to do this tour of the facility the next day and all this stuff. So I get there, and I was at the sign-in desk. It was in a small room. So first of all, there was less than 50 people there. Stunned by how small this was.
First red flag.
Okay. I'm checking in, and this lady comes up to me and starts giving me kind of a massage. I have no idea who this is. Okay. And she's like, she does this for a few seconds. I'm like, I'm uncomfortable with what's going on. And then she walks away and she goes, I'll see you in a little while. Okay. So I walk into this room. I have unusual conversations with many people, like weird conversations. I have no idea what they're talking about. They're just talking in circles for 10, 15 minutes at a time. I literally have to stop them. The one guy actually asked, can you just send me to your website? He's like, this is too complicated to have explained on a website. What are you talking about? This is insane. The drinks that they were offering was red and blue. That was it. You could check. So like red pill, blue pill type of scenario, right? And then I started asking people why I'm there. And I caught up to the organizer, and she said, well, these are about 50 of the brightest people in the world. And isn't it exciting that we're here to change the world? This is like a kumbaya moment with the organizer. And then I'm thinking to myself, and I asked her again, I said, so why am I here? Because I'm not one of the 50 brightest people in the world. And most of the people...
51st.
Most of the people, yeah, right, 51st, yeah. Most of the people I talk to...
brightest, not best look.
Are not... No, they did say brightest, yeah. But the people I talk to are not the brightest people in the world either. So anyway, it was really weird. And then this gal comes into the room. She comes up to me and she's like, I'm so excited you're here.
Was it the same one?
Same one that gave me the massage, okay? And we start talking, and she goes, and I have your contact information, so if I need to reach out, I can do that, right? She opens up her phone, and she has all of my contact information in her phone, photos of me, birth dates, and I'm thinking, okay, this stuff is public information. But then she has, and I can't divulge it on the air, but, Steve and I are working on a project that's pretty secret, and she has this project.
We could tell you, but we'd have
on her phone. And I'm serious. There is no more than maybe 15 people that know about this on the planet. This is not public information, and there's no way she knows about this. And I just looked at that, and then she wants to take pictures. And there was this gal standing next to me, and she literally grabs me out of there, and she goes, "You don't take pictures with these people because they're going to have you on their website promoting what they're talking about here." And I'm just like, oh my goodness, what the heck is going on?
Or maybe a milk carton.
Or whatever. You know, I am literally kind of freaking out. I'm still freaking out about the fact that she has this project on her phone. How do you have this? And then so I left. I had checked into the hotel there. I hadn't gone up to the room yet. I had just checked in. I left. I didn't even go back to my room.
I would have been gone too. But so what was this whole event? Was there a name to it? If you can divulge, or
so I don't want to divulge it.
Fair enough.
Yes,
fair enough.
But they called it a precursor to CES. There's an event that's going to go on in Vegas around the crypto, blockchain, NFT space in September. So this is kind of like they're building it up as this precursor to CES, which happens in January, February.
Yep.
So that's what this was about. And that's how they got me there. And they gave me all these, like I said, they were paying for my room. They were paying for my food, transportation around town, all this other stuff. And I only showed up because I was there anyway. I would have not made a special trip down there, although I think they would have taken care of my airfare too. But I'm serious. I felt like I was targeted for something here.
You were. The question is what and why. And did you know any of the other people there?
Nobody.
Not a soul.
Not a soul.
And they were not 50 of the brightest people in the world.
No, at least they didn't. I mean, maybe there were some bright people. There were bright people in the room. I'm not saying they're not, but they're certainly not at the level of like an Elon Musk and whatever. I mean, these are not. These are people that have. They were all pitching something. That's all this was, in my opinion.
But they knew who you did.
They all knew who I was.
So this was deliberate.
What's interesting about this? They all came up to me and introduced themselves to me, and I'm like, how? And yes, I had a name tag on from the other place, but this is not why they knew me. And I actually took my name tag off after a while, and they still knew who I was.
That's interesting. So you could probably call what we call in the business, you're a whale. Nothing in particular to how you look. Right. And so I'm just saying.
Well, but you're in Vegas, and Vegas used to be about whale.
Right.
You get that whale in the room,
right,
and then you soak them for all the money.
So in the email world, right, you have spear fishing, right? Then you have whale fishing. But there's also the social side of this, which is occurring now, where they actually will try to target an individual for something in the future, right? Don't know why, have no objective. But when I know who Marlo Anderson is, what he's involved in, and the property that is your business being National Day, I'm just wondering why. For what purpose? Are you a mechanism? Are they going to use you for something or your business for something? That's the real question. Or are they going to target your business to propagate some message? I would be concerned about that. So it's something, you want to dive a little deeper in, and we can professionally do that outside this broadcast to keep some stuff private and actually use some tools to go figure out who these people were and why, and then maybe look into a little bit into your background, what's actually out there. So when you talk about this project, this top secret project, how many people do you estimate know?
I'd say 15.
So 15, it's tough to keep a secret with 15 people.
That is true.
Right.
Most of the people in that group of 15 don't even know what the project really is about. I mean, they understand the mechanisms of it, but they don't, what it's going to do. They just don't understand how it does it.
So my guess is there's ways that once they have your contact list, your friends, through social media or through other means, then they start listening and doing background checks, and then maybe they come up with something common.
Now, that's what I was worried about. I'm like, Marla, do I have to worry?
Yeah, you probably should.
Contact list.
So, people go after that all the time. And the strange thing is when you're in a mobile world, and I know you are extremely mobile and use the tools more than probably a laptop today. So all of a sudden you have everything accessible and you give rights to it.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening, and they're getting to those shared. Now, do you have malicious software on your phone? I can't tell you that. I haven't looked at it.
So I actually went and reset my phone.
Oh, see that?
Almost immediately.
That's some of the best advice you can give to people out there. Now, you got to remember, you are, I believe, Android.
Yes.
How many people know how to reset their phone if they think something happened, though? The average person isn't going to know that.
Well, you're probably right. I mean, there's just you can reset it back to factory default, and then you bring all your stuff because it's saved in the cloud, so you can bring everything back down.
Most people are lazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, see, that's the other thing I would worry about. Once you reset it, you're still bringing everything back.
Well, but I would say that I trust Google to know that I'm bringing in malicious, that they're not going to store malicious software on their stuff, right? I mean, I trust them more than I trust myself with that because they have a lot more to lose than I do.
They do, but we'll talk about this maybe in another segment.
Okay.
What's out there is what just happened with Google Authenticator. So there's some.
Oh, I don't know about this.
Yeah, there's some very interesting stuff that's just coming out there. And
interesting.
So when you start using multi-factor authentication, I believe Marlo Anderson probably does.
I do.
Or two-factor authentication at a minimum. So I would worry about that in the contact list.
To Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
So I just want to reiterate here too that, I know I'm maybe a little more public figure than most people are, but this can happen to anybody, right? I mean, there might be reasons for whatever reason, that people might want to target you or somebody in your family or whatever. So the only reason I'm even sharing this story, because I would never share this story if I didn't think that other people, wouldn't be impacted by it.
Actually, it was kind of fun because I was talking to you the next day, and I kept throwing things in that was kind of freaking them out.
Yeah, it's not freaking me out. But I do think that. I think that everybody's at risk here.
Right.
So this is why I'm sharing this story, because this is not something I would normally share with people.
And my question, John, is so going back to the information side, because he did not know this person, and how easy was it to, being close proximity in something as, hey, I'm going to rub somebody's shoulders that I don't know, but do they ever fight?
So my cell phone's in my back pocket.
And she's behind you.
She's behind me doing this.
So for her to have a skimming device, I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes and forms.
Your phone, right?
They can be your phone. They can be your phone. It's RFID. It's NFC,
yeah.
But also Bluetooth. We got to forget about that. If you enable Bluetooth for certain functions, allow people to see my network, connect to my network. You just kind of do that because it makes it easy to come in and be connected right away. So you had 3 possible attack vectors standing behind you, giving you a massage. That's more than creepy, I guess. I don't know.
Creepy.
And then on top of it, they're invading your personal space. They're touching you and having this sultry voice, I guess, talking to you. It would creep the hell out of me. I don't know if I can say
you just did.
Yeah. So, but hell yeah.
I think we should scare people a little bit here.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing with Marlo the rest of the weekend and sending a message, and I talked to him when he got back, and legitimately he was freaked out by it. And I'm like, yeah, you should be.
I'm surprised at how easy this took place, and I still don't 100% know for sure how she got this information, but my best guess is this massage thing that she...
And my takeaway is you're the guru of geekdom, and I'm not. And you could walk into something like that. I'm like, how easy is it for the average person on the street to lose their personal information in something as simple as somebody bumped into them on the sidewalk?
So if I have up until that time, I used to pay with my phone a lot. I go up and I pay with NFC as opposed to a credit card. I tap my phone, pays my bagel bill or my coffee bill or whatever.
It's convenient, right?
Oh my goodness, it's so convenient.
It's a wonderful technology.
Yeah. But as I was digging into this afterwards, you start to think about, wait a minute, there's like no security on this whatsoever, because the only way it really works is if there is no security. Because if you have to put a password in every time, for example, what good is that?
What's the convenience, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got the tap to pay with your credit card, right? That's kind of cool.
Kind of cool.
I know I've heard noise around. I actually have not seen that happen or heard or somebody come contact me directly. Oh, I've tapped my card and it's taken something. What I do know that when it comes to phone, anything RFID, NFC, Bluetooth, that is part of what we do in our business is we have devices that we will put on even in a backpack. They're bigger and be further away. So you don't have to be very close to you to do this. That's the other scary part about this. So you can actually wear a backpack, walk around, and proximity helps. But if they're using near field communication, that was probably if I had a guess, I would probably point there. I wouldn't even point to Bluetooth.
Now, how fast is that, like, compared to Bluetooth? I mean, can they change? Is the transfer rate pretty significant where they can?
It's decent. I just don't know how wide the bandwidth is to how much data can come down. I don't know off the top of my head. I do know that you can move stuff pretty quick, but it sounds like she was massaging you for at least a minute.
Well, I don't know if it was that long, but it was a while.
Felt like a long time, right?
Yeah, well, I was uncomfortable for a long time.
And then, the other thing is she could have been standing behind you for a while and got closer. All of a sudden, now she gets the signal. And now I know I need a little more time, just that little bit more time. But maybe that's something for another topic. I can do a little research.
So I have a pleasure. Just going back to layman, me. So I use my phone and I have a phone case with my credit cards and everything that's in here. My phone's my wallet. Do I need to look, or should people look at having those protective cases or the shielding for their phones and their credit cards? What do that look like?
Do they even work?
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Do they work?
So they have to be certified. I believe if that card is certified by the FCC, you're probably in business, right? Because they're looking at it. And there are some out there that do that. And I have not tried this, but it'd be interesting because you have those cards or the protective sleeve for your credit card, right? You can get things for your phone, but there's actually cards that you can carry. So Steve, I know I'm not going to say how you carry your phone and wallet, but knowing what I do, I know you could slip something in there to probably protect both.
Mm-hmm.
So there's devices out there that will provide that jamming that you can carry.
I see. That's interesting.
Right. So
it's an expensive thing.
Not terrible at all. I mean, What's expensive? Look what you just lost.
Well, that's true. But I'm wondering, but what's the barrier? Is it what's
it's not
$100?
Yeah, I would say it's under $99 typically, right?
Okay.
So it's not a huge expense, but what's it worth? So if you can get the so-called jamming device, go back to, when you drive down, you had the radar detectors and you got radar jamming devices for speeding. Similar concept here.
Interesting.
Still,
maybe you should be sharing that on the air.
Lead foot. I'm just saying.
Funny.
Highway, not in town.
So that's interesting. So, and then like there's wallets, there's purses that you can buy that have these coatings in them. Tinfoil hats. I mean,
kind of like that too. They do. I mean, you even have them for think about your passport today too, right? So they have them to protect your passport. But and Kickstarter has some interesting things out there, as you know, as a subscriber sometimes.
Yeah, I love Kickstarter.
So there's a few things coming out there that you can always look there for some of the latest and greatest. But for sure, there are jamming devices out there. I just call it a credit card jammer. And you can actually put that with your devices and cards to actually break that interference. But you as an owner have a responsibility too. When you walk into an area and you have Wi-Fi going, Bluetooth going, all these other connections, it might not be a bad idea to put your phone in airplane mode, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially when you're at something like this. Now you're going to lose messages and you can't connect, but in this situation.
So I should have known better. I mean, I've gone to White Hat before. I know you've been there as well. The White Hat, why don't you explain what White Hat is?
So there's three different hats in the cyber world, right? White hat are those for the good guys. They tell you how to do things. They do things for the benefit or for the good. Black hat is the other extreme. They are nefarious. They do it for money. And then the gray hat in the middle, they can kind of go both ways. And, they might come up and say, hey, Steve, guess what? You got that business out there. I found this flaw. If you give me about $25,000, I won't expose it. I'll just give it to you. You can look good and fix it, and the good press, and you're balking at it. Well, guess what? They're going to flip the gray hat, front to back, and they're going to go around and sell it. So they play the middle line. So that's what you're dealing with here. And you can think of it, the psychology of all three are dramatically different. dramatically different. But I would, the white hat stuff we've talked about, you've got Black Hat in Vegas, right?
Well, you have
They got DEF CON there.
Right. You have all these events that go on all the time. So if you go to a white hat event, they always talk about half the audience isn't white hat at all.
100%.
Yeah.
And half is just curious. But what's happening now with AI, and I don't know if that's a topic now, rather, it's a whole other ball game.
Right.
It's 100% a different ball game, and everybody needs to be in it right now, as scary as it is.
Well,
But
one thing's for sure, when you go to any of the hat events, nobody has their phone on them.
Nobody has their phone on. You don't wear expensive jewelry. Yeah. You look as normal as you possibly can because they will follow you to your room.
Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
And if you're just joining us, Mr. John Nagel in studio, our cybersecurity specialist, Beck Communications, and the name of your company.
Cybernet Security by Beck. They acquired us a couple of years ago because they saw the relevancy and the trajectory of where cyber is going, especially in telecommunications, critical infrastructure. So that's what we do.
And we're talking about ways that there are ways that maybe people who are more public or whatever are targeted or whatever, but everybody can have these type of scenarios. And one of them is juice jacking. What the heck is juice jacking?
There's these wonderful, we have a bunch of acronyms, but we have some really cool words.
Yeah, we do.
So here's juice jacking. So juice jacking is this need for power, right?
Right.
You carry your phone with you. Oh crap, I'm out of juice. I'm at an airport. What do I do? Or public charging stations is really where this evolved from. And you go up and you charge your phone, you plug it in. Hey, this is all cool. Well, who could ever think of?
Because there's a cord dangling there that's got USB 3 or whatever you need to plug it in.
And it's got 5 different connectors on it. I can connect anything.
Other people's phones are sitting there.
Tab or you set it down and away you go.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh, this is fine and safe. The problem with that is that inside that jack, there's more than 4 wires there, but typically there's 4 wires. 2 are for data and a couple for charging. Red and black for charging, typically, if you crack them open. The problem is you plug them in, they're all 4 connected. So now you got a data connection. And that's where the issue comes in. So when you go out and plug these in, there's been a lot of chatter. And this has been going on for multiple years now. And it got raised again by, the FCC, got raised by FBI, CISA, et cetera, that, hey, this is becoming a problem. The interesting thing is I've never heard of it happening to anybody. I know of it. I know it's 100% possible because I've got cables to do it with, being in this business. So when you plug that in, it comes to your phone. What it actually does, it'll connect. It'll actually take and send some data down that line to your phone to put some malware on it. And you won't know it's there. And then as you start to move away, it takes hold and it'll start to execute itself. So now you've been jacked, and then it'll send and transmit that data via cellular or other, or allow them to get in and get contacts. So, anywhere you go, you see those charging stations, it's a convenience. We need power. Everybody needs more power. And Tim the Toolman Taylor, right? I was just waiting for the show reference here. But so when you talk about that, what do, right? Everybody has portable little chargers, but it's weight. I've got my, 400 milliamp, 1200 milliamp little charger, but you're carrying it again. Oh, should you have lithium ion batteries on the plane? Probably not. So what do? You take off and you plug in. Go ahead.
So the question then is, we're talking about the cord that's dangling there.
Correct.
We're not talking about you bringing your own wall jack charger and plugging it in the wall. We're not talking about, are we talking about, okay, there's a USB port there and I've got my own cord.
Yeah.
Do you trust that USB port?
I don't trust anything like that, to be honest.
Because the cord you have, everything's connected, right? I mean, it's a data cord as well as a power cord.
So here's a couple of things for everybody. You can just go buy a charging cord, period. Doesn't matter what's in that USB jack.
So what do you look for when you go, okay, I'm going to be traveling and I want just a power cord, no data? Is that a 2, 3? How do you see that in the box?
It just says power charger cord only. You can specifically look for that. It'll say phone charge cord only, no data transfer. When you plug your phone in right away, it comes up, you plug it into your PC and, oh, hey, would you like to connect?
Exactly.
Those are those other lines in there. So those are the ones you don't want. So you can go out and buy the cords charging only. There's another little trick too. If you're an Apple user, take your cord and hold it up to the light. If you can see light on both sides of it at the corners, you're probably okay. If it's dark, that's a bad cord. 100% they're using it, yes. So 100% you can. That's one way to do it. Is it 100% foolproof? I don't know. I can't answer that. But I know if I can't see through it, I probably might have a problem.
Right.
And you can buy these cords. People can lay them out there to plug in. So,
But if you have your own block and you plug into a power outlet,
you're fine.
Then you're fine because it's you. Because there's no way that data is being taken over electrical lines.
100%, right? So
Yet.
Data is plentiful. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, in fact, you can still buy these things. You plug them into your power outlet, and it moves in it, or it moves your network.
Well, like fiber, and fiber has the ability for carrying electricity and carrying.
But I'm going to get that block that you buy. There's no data transfer going on at that block.
No,
even if that receptacle could move data, there's no way that block's going to let it go through anyway.
It wouldn't, because there's no connector for it. It's just positive, negative.
That's exactly right.
There's nothing else out there. So, and there's a couple other things out there, and I know this might sound a little crude. I don't intend it to be, but go to Amazon or go to the web, and they're called USB condoms. And they are just little things you can carry in your pocket, size of a quarter. You plug that in first, and then plug your cable into it. That'll take care of you.
Really?
But it's really nice to have, right? They're inexpensive. Buy them a 5-pack for $10, $20, but you've got them. So if you lose one, not a big deal. But it's easier to carry that sometimes than a big power pack yourself. That weight in your backpack seems to get heavier and heavier and heavier. So if I can find little things like that to help, it's
depends on what airline you're flying to.
Yeah, that's the other one too.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So, are there other little things out there besides juice jacking? And we're going to get into Wi-Fi in the next segment, but anything else that you can think of where people can easily steal your data as you're walking around?
So the data, not so much. When I think of physical data, I'm talking about documents that you have stored on something. What's interesting to me in this field is having people connect to something, public Wi-Fi. And being able to not recognize, is that actually Starbucks or Star BUKS, right? And those are very easy to put up. And
I always ask that if somebody goes, hey, you need to download this app. And I'm like, okay, show me the picture of the app that you think that I need, because there's little nuances that could be different. You and I had a conversation about acorns.
Yeah.
And there's acorn, there's a bunch.
It's all of that, right?
Hey, one other question on the charging thing too. What about charging pads?
Charging pads, I haven't seen an issue with it, but you think about it. We just they were giving away a bunch of them at a show I was at this week. You plug them in, you set your phone up on there, and away you go. And I haven't talked about that one yet, but I'm just wondering if some of those are out there too that can be jacked that way.
You're talking
Bluetooth or something.
That's what and NFC field
B or whatever. Yeah.
The other thing too, and this going back a little old school, going to different conferences and businesses used to hand out the USBs.
Oh, don't ever pick those up.
Don't ever.
No, $1 million. No, leave those alone. Don't go there. But the last thing that, here, just to go back to the public Wi-Fi thing, you can sit down at Kirkwood Mall right here in Bismarck, North Dakota, and you can put up your own little Wi-Fi. And we use some tools out there, and you can just sit there and just sit right in the middle of Kirkwood Mall at a bench and just relax with your computer. And it's funny how people walk by and they'll connect. And when they connect and then, I want to log into something. Connecting is one thing, but as soon as you log into something, now your password, now your login name comes right across. And people don't think about it. So public Wi-Fi, not a bad thing, but please use a VPN. Use some type of encryption mechanism if you're going to go do banking. Just don't do that.
And make sure that you're connecting to somebody that you trust. I mean, if you're going to be at a place, if you're at Kirkwood Mall, for example, and like you said, there's a misspelling in it or just another nuance to it, you need to make sure you're connecting to the one. Because, I've been in Vegas many times, and I look at the Wi-Fi that are available, and I would bet that half of them are hackers.
100%.
Get in there.
Talk of the town.
KLXX Mandan Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union studio.